Good evening, Razorback fans. We want to welcome you to the one, the only Hog Podcast. And we are part of Believe and Buzz Radio Networks, where you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz 2 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. I am your host, Porter Hayes of Sports and Culture Arkansas. Alongside me is Jacob Davis from Arkansas Flat and Saturday Down South. And all live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in Ozark, Arkansas, as well as Bet Online. It's the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, events with first-to-market odds and lines. Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. So head on over to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to join and make your first sports deposit bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Another tough loss for Arkansas. It's crazy that can you differentiate which one hurt worse, this one or Liberty? I mean, you're right there with LSU. Last week you just got, you got manhandled by a Liberty team, and then the 17th ranked team in the country, you had the lead, you were hanging with them and fell short 13-10. So Jacob, I guess I seen you were at the game. So, what was your thoughts, your takeaways from the game, as a whole and in the aftermath of it?
Yeah. So I really thought the defense played well, to be honest with you. Played a lot of man coverage on defense. We saw McAdoo. I mean, it's crazy that a guy that's played 2 whole games as a defensive back in Quincy McAdoo is being trusted to play man coverage against LSU's wide receivers, and then with alongside McLaughlin. They locked up those guys pretty well and just dared LSU to run and beat them. And Arkansas did a pretty good job of containing Jaden Daniels. I think he only had like 21 or 23 yards rushing. Didn't really allow him to beat you. Josh Williams, he reeled off a couple of long runs, and I was just waiting for LSU to just rip off a biggin, and they never did that. Arkansas's defense played well, I thought. Offensively, it's what we all expected. If you don't have KJ Jefferson in there at quarterback, it's hard to get those points and generate any kind of momentum when you don't have KJ back there. And so those were 2 of my big takeaways. I mean, minus the LSU receiver being short of the sticks. I'm sure we'll cover that later. I would have liked it seeing Arkansas be in a more be able to have 4 minutes to go with 3 timeouts instead of 1 timeout and 2 minutes left with your third string quarterback in there. I would have liked to have seen that Porter. But yeah, that's really my only takeaways of the game. I think that's probably the best case scenario, honestly.
Yeah,
that we could have seen.
You come into the game, and we put this out last week. I said, and that's the thing. We caught a lot of heat, or I caught a lot of heat. I won't say we because it was my doings, but caught a lot of heat about moral victories. And just because we put something out there doesn't mean it's a moral victory. You're right. Coming off of a loss to Liberty, who just got beat by UConn. I know we can play this game of, well, this team beat this team, team beat this team, but you're coming off a loss to a team like Liberty that just manhandled you. And then you come in and you've got the 7th ranked team in the country. Everybody's saying they're going to lose the rest of the games the rest of the way of the year. They're going to lose this game. LSU's going to blow them out. So if you really, and I know there's going to be those ones that die hard, thought Arkansas had a chance with this because they know how the LSU Arkansas rivalry is. But I guarantee 80% of the people gave Arkansas a chance to win this game. And I guarantee you 100% of those are the ones that are in uproar the most about decisions made in this game. You know, when it comes to this, look, we have to remember there is a thing called depth. If you don't have depth, and we've said this before, this is not a sport just like baseball or basketball where you're rotating your quarterback, your pitcher, and your point guard in and out. You have a starting quarterback, and then there's a huge drop-off. Now you're going down to your third-string quarterback. So, I mean, and then execution and stopping Perkins. I mean, all of these things go into execution and effort. Defense played lights out. If you'd asked me that was your score right there, 13, you held LSU to 13 points after you gave up all the points to Liberty. You gave up all these points to Bama. I mean, I would have thought you were crazy. But you got to play a full game. And yes, there is questions that need to be answered. There's things going on that we don't know. There's cryptic messages being thrown out on social media about some post-game comments and then a certain player responding to that. And we'll get into that later. But overall, yes, it's a loss. But it's not saying it's a moral victory if you're saying that, hey, on this same day last week, was you saying that this would be the outcome?
No, I wasn't.
You know, I mean, so it's not a moral. No, I thought it was going to be a blowout. I mean, honestly, I was questioning the team in the heart because just the way the press conferences were going. And that's the thing. It's like one side showed up, and I know it was cold, but it was cold for both sides of the ball. The defense showed a lot of effort, And this here, before I go back to you, James Carpenter said that was one of the loudest games I've been to. I want to give the utmost props to the fans because you were there. But I'm telling you, coming off that loss, knowing it was LSU, it snowed overnight, and for the fans to truly sell out that stadium or close to it. It wasn't like it's a sellout and then 40,000 fans showed. I want to tip my hat to every single fan who showed up to that stadium and cheered and was there in one of the coldest games that in recent memory, I guess.
Yeah. I sit in the lower bowl season tickets wise, but I had a bunch of family up in the section 500. So I went and saw my brother. His birthday was yesterday, so shout out to Cam. But went up there and the only place that you could really tell that was empty was I think the west side corner of the stadium at the very top, which is usually like pretty speckled, but there was probably one section of that section up there at the top that was empty. I mean, there was a few fans here and there, but the rest of it, I mean, the seats were sold. I mean, people were their butts were in the seats. So I was really impressed by that. The stadium was very loud. There was a couple of times that the decibel meter would meet to like 93, 94. I have a decibel meter on my phone to kind of detect the loudness of the stadium. It got up to about 99, 100 where I was at, but that's probably because, I had fans sitting all around me. I don't know where the position is inside the stadium, but I mean, it was loud. There was points that my ears were ringing. I could feel when Arkansas had the interception, I think, and I saw Chris Paul and all them high-fiving each other and hip-checking each other. I could feel the stadium shaking. I mean, that was how loud it was. And I really like what James had to say. This program is still very much alive and well, and that is true. I mean, these fans, they want to help will this team to victory. that's the whole thing about college football, home field advantage, how powerful it is. And I really think Arkansas has one of the best home field advantages in all of college football, especially in the SEC, because it's just a different atmosphere than anything else in the entire conference.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, it's one of the top, atmosphere, and that's SEC football. I mean, even your lower tier, like your Mississippi States and Ole Misses and stuff. I mean, I guess outside of Missouri and Vanderbilt, I don't think that there is a stadium. I don't know about Kentucky, but I'm just saying there's two that I know of for sure that are lacking, and that's Vanderbilt and Missouri. That's the only ones where I've really just consistently heard negative things about. So if you can sit there and say that out of all your conferences or all the teams in your conference, you've got two that are, when it comes to stadium atmospheres, I mean, that's pretty good, and that's what you're going to get. And especially for the time and the temperature and everything going into the game, I didn't expect it to be that full. I mean, I expected a lot of people to go, and then everybody made it, was talking about the opening weekend of deer season. People go deer hunting and stuff, and, that was prime weather to go, but they still went and showed out and, called the Hogs. And like I said, one half side of the ball. I mean, you held them to 284 yards total offense. They had 86 yards passing and 198 yards rushing. But I mean, most of that was by that drive by, I would say Johnson was his name. Let me scroll up here and see real quick. Josh Williams. He had 122 yards rushing. And a lot of that was on that drive that we'll get into here in a moment. But, for the most part, it seems like I don't know what's going on. And I know a lot of it had to do with the blocking. But, we got to get to the point where we're not averaging 2.9 yards a carry. When you're priding yourself on your offensive line, you're priding yourself on Rocket Sanders, A.J. Green. The Binion had 3 carries for 2 yards. Cade Fortin had 17 yards rushing on 5 carries. A.J. Green, 7 for 31. Malik had 18 carries for 37. Now, and here's where it kind of gets tricky because he actually went 18 for 79, but he got sacked for 42 yards. So me and Blake Ruffino were talking about, I think the sacks need to go on the passing yards. That's just our opinion because they're dropping back to a pass. And if you're going to call it a sack, I mean, that's where we go. But, Rocket Sanders had 12 carries for 46 yards, 3.8 yards a carry. So that all falls right there. Your 2.9 yards a carry, 133 net yards on rushing. That's unacceptable when you have the offensive line that you're supposed to have.
Yeah. And LSU had been giving up a lot of rushing yards consistently. I think 7 out of their 9 games this season, they allowed at least 101 yards rushing. And I know Arkansas exceeded that. But, I mean, when you have supposed to have such a dominant offensive line and you're not blocking as well as you think you should be, like I don't know, man. It was just a weird showing the past couple of weeks. It's like everybody was bragging on this offensive line, how the offense is playing for the past 3 months, and then all of a sudden they've just gone down. And maybe it's due to injuries, maybe it's due to guys, with them blocks and not being ready. I don't know what it is, Porter, but man, there's just something going on along the offensive line that just doesn't look stable right now.
It's a mixture of a lot of things. And I said this in the previous statement. It's depth. When you only got one level of starters, offense and defense, and you're trying to cycle people in and they're not helping out. I mean, that's huge. And look where we're at. And everybody says, well, why is it happening at this point of the season? If that doesn't show you that it's depth and that these guys are getting wore out and wore down, there's nobody to come in and do a third down stopper. There's nobody to come in and run a series that you can count on when it comes to your backups and to get you some stops because of the way the defense have been given up.
Right.
Especially in the secondary with so much, you look at Brooks and Fouché that are with LSU, Catalan's hurt, Slusher deal, all this stuff. It seems like, every year something happens with, players leaving or, getting arrested or they're injured. Look at, Morgan last year, playing on, bum shoulder, and bumper pull, and Drew Sanders showed up. I mean, that's the thing. We were missing them so much. And I'm telling you what, if they wouldn't have showed up, Drew Sanders had 12 total tackles and bumper pull had 10 tackles. And then Drew Sanders had a sack. But also, when you're looking at Harold Perkins Jr. all game, 8 tackles and 4 sacks. He was just. I mean, you've seen it. Everybody was like, put another offensive line on him, but he was spying on the quarterback. It's easy to say these things, but he would sit there, wait, shoot the gap, and with his speed, I know they are making a big deal about Malik and track speed, but when you're running sideways with a football, it's not really fair to sit there and say that's the one thing that did get old to me was. I understand Perkins is fast and I understand Malik's fast, but you got one guy running freehand, nothing in his hands, shooting a gap at a straight line opposed to a guy sidestepping, looking down the field, throwing the ball. Like I felt like we were playing Alabama and Gary Danielson was calling the game. It's like get over that part of it. Like enough with he chased a guy that run the 100 meters and or 4x100. He was not running with the football when he was doing that.
Standing still.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Perkins. That dude had a beast mode day, but it was just like, okay, enough of this narrative of he's chasing this track start out. The dude had a football in his hand.
Yeah. And that's how announcers are. I go back to like the Cam Newton days. You remember how it was just each and every single week. And then Arkansas finally plays Auburn, and it's Cam Newton this, Cam Newton that. And Arkansas's got a freaking, Ryan Mallett who's leading the SEC in passing yardage, and then they drop off to Tyler Wilson. And as great as Tyler Wilson was playing, Cam Newton was still getting the praise. And Tyler Wilson almost brought Arkansas back. And they did bring him back to a lead in that game. And it was still all about hugging on Cam Newton. And that's just how it's always been. You saw it with Jadeveon Clowney. You've seen it with so many of these can't-miss prospects.
Tim Tebow.
It just gets old.
And then, when Alabama started their dynasty, I mean, like I said, that's where Vern and Gary, I'm like, that's like, I think that they're just going to have, and I asked when we had the guy from Jermaine on from Alabama, what's Gary and them going to do next year when they're not going to get to call the SEC no more. They're going to sit there and lost, and but right here it says the last 2 games and most Arkansas football thing ever. I mean, that's kind of true.
Yes.
You let the lesser team manhandle you, and then you play really good against LSU. But I really do want to get into, and this is where we differentiate on our opinions on it. And I want to get your take on it first of, at that point in the game, I want your take on why you thought that the field goals was the better option. And I'll give my take on why I thought that going for it on 4th down was, in my opinion, and going with the coaches of going for it.
Yeah. So I didn't really mind the 4th down call, but I thought taking the points would be more important at that point in the game. Why? Because you don't know what you're going to need at that point going forward. I'm a conservative guy. I was a guy that was totally against the spread offenses. I was a old school ISO running back, play action boot kind of guy, and the spreads kind of won me over the years. But I'm still that kind of conservative guy that I want to take what I can get and add some scores to the game. And I just think that taking the field goal right there was the safest thing. Maybe it keeps you in a tie ball game. And then hopefully at later on in the game, you have the chance to either tie or know what you're going to need to win the ball game. And I think that was my whole take. I wasn't infuriated by not taking the field goal because I understood on the other side of things. And I'll let you elaborate on your reasoning for taking it on the 4th down. Taking the chance.
Well, there was a lot of, and my biggest point of the whole, everybody was in an uproar, was right here, that score. Everybody's looking at that score, and it's easy to look at that score and be like, well, if they would have kicked the points, they'd have been a tie game. All right, true number one. All right, so let's go with that theory right there. So it's 13-13. You get the points. Are you trusting the defense in overtime to go into a shootout with LSU? In overtime. We're not talking about the first quarter, second quarter. You've seen what happened in the third quarter and on. Are you trusting and knowing that your offense, you're down to your third string quarterback? Are you thinking that they can outscore them in a shootout when you go into overtime? I don't think so. So that's from my first point on why I think. And here's the reason why. And Devin brings up a point. It was just the first quarter. Take the points off the turnover. Keep the momentum. We've been awful at 4th and goal the entire season. Well, 27 of the 34 trips inside the red zone, you've scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
Also,
it's just the whole league deal.
Yes, but here's my main point of it. You're up 3-0. Your offense has held them to, scoreless for 28 minutes. You're going into the half with 52 combined passing yards. You're at the 3-yard line. Why not take the chance? I mean, it's risk worth reward. You get the you get the drive, or you get the 4th down and goal. It's 10-0. Or say it does fail. You do fail. You're trusting your defense that and you have faith in them to hold them to go 97 yards down the field, or either kick a field goal and tie it up or score a touchdown. You've held them scoreless for 28 minutes. I just think knowing 10-0, you get the ball back. 3-3, you get the ball back. So it's just, and even if they scored a touchdown, 6-3 or what have you, but that's why in that moment, if in that point of time, if you thought that you're going to need more than 10 points, you could sit there and say you need more than 14 points to win this game. So you get the touchdowns when you feel like we can get a touchdown. And it didn't pan out, and that's the way it happened. But I'm saying the risk versus the reward, you're up 10-0 if it pans out.
Yeah, and that was the same kind of deal that Sam Pittman was talking about, that at that point it felt like the reward was greater than the risk. Now, I don't mind Sam going for it. I like the calls because, here we were under Bielema wishing that he would have done certain things right or differently, or during the Houston Nut days, you wish you would have seen him take more chances, but you can't play conservative ball when you have your second and third string guy in there. You got to take it. I mean, you were 10 yards away from the end zone. I mean, I do get the point of going for it on 4th down and trying to convert. But you also want to try to get the points too. So I don't think either side is wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think
either side is wrong, but I think we could both be right. I mean, either way.
Yeah.
I mean, Arkansas could have scored, on 4th down, touchdown, or they could have scored the field goal. And it could but you don't know at that point in the ball game in the first quarter what the end game is going to be, what you're going to be facing in the 4th quarter. You don't know. And when Arkansas did get down 13-3, I think that's what a lot of the frustration was that Arkansas, if they would have just kicked the field goal there in the first quarter, it would have been a touchdown lead instead of a 10-point lead.
Yeah, and Devin brings up another point about Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels at that point was not my worry. It was Josh Williams, who had 122 yards rushing.
I was waiting on him to break it.
That's the thing. Like you look at, and even John Emery had 3 for 40, he had 13 yards per carry on 3 carries, but Josh Williams had 6.4 yards a carry on 19 carries and a touchdown and for 31 yards. So, I mean, it's just that the defense was so worn out. And even if you do, can you trust and when we go back to trading 7 for 3, can you trust your offense more to get 7 points than your defense? If you can trust your defense to hold them to 3 and you can score 7, hey, let's go get in that shootout.
Right.
But if you can't trust your offense, and you're going to have to settle for a field goal and know that their running back had over 122 yards rushing,
Right.
You're getting in a 7-3 battle, and you're going to lose that every time. And that's just, like I said, that's my opinion on it. It's just, and again, it's easy to say in the first quarter, hey, take the points, but it was a gamble. I mean, you're playing with house money at this point. You're playing with house money at this point in the season, and that was the 7th ranked team in the nation. You go for it, and you're like a hero, and you're up 10-0, and you're talking about momentum going at the half. You're up 10-0, and you get the ball back. Man, that's a lot of momentum going in the second half.
Yeah, there was a lot of shades to the 2014 game. I mean, the LSU being ranked so high, with it being 37 degrees at kickoff, was the same temperature it was in the 2014 game. It was really cool to see kind of like the similarities between that game and this year's game. I really was impressed by the defensive line, and I know we may get into it after the break, but I really want to give a shout out to guys like Chris Paul, who was just on fire coming off the daggum line, or coming out of the linebacker position. I mean, he was everywhere yesterday. McAdoo, there is promise on this defense moving forward if you can hold these guys together, like these young guys. You're wanting McLaughlin to come back. You want McAdoo to continue to develop as a cornerback. Paul, with him returning at linebacker, there's a lot of good pieces there. If they can continue to stack the depth and get the same kind of caliber players, guys that are going to maximize their potential, like Arkansas's got some good things going. And I think a lot of the things we took for granted last year was the experience that we've had. And I think that's why, going from year 2 to year 3, we had such high expectations, is because we were adding these guys that were big time transfers, but we were hoping for the same result. Because we were
and in your non-conference games was tougher than what
transfers. Yeah. What was that?
You said your non-conference games ended up being a little bit tougher than what you thought. I mean,
Yes.
Liberty, Cincinnati was one that was, going to be, it was tougher. BYU, I mean, you come out and you ended up taking care of business in the BYU game, but that was a tougher, it was a tough game.
A lot tougher.
Then you look at the Texas A&M game I mean, we're looking at a team that field goal goes through the upright. I mean, we're talking about momentum. We don't know. We can play that what if game all want when we talk about momentum, but no, this is by far the best. You want to talk about, and this is not just by stats alone, just how they were flying to the ball. Hudson Clark had another stellar game. I mean, McAdoo, you were talking about, everybody is just on him, and it is warranted. That dude, you talk about making the most of your opportunity, and he's come in and not only filled in a spot, he's earned a starting spot. He's earned that spot. And it has, and the way he's played, 6 tackles. I mean, he, and then
pass breakups,
2 pass breakups. That's right. And it's all about quality. I mean, that one breakup was a veteran play. I mean, timing, he had his arm on him just at the right time and knocked the ball away. You got to give it to him. Somebody who coach has said, hey, this guy needs to play more. I don't care where we put him, but he's that talented. And that, I'm telling you what, honestly, that is the first time I've heard Coach Pittman say that about a player. And you look at the talent when we've had people where they don't know to stick them. But McAdoo is the first time where I've heard Pittman openly say, I don't care where he's at. I want him on the field. And that says a lot.
That means he's a player.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Like, when you think of Arkansas guys, and that's what Sam Pittman's alluded to over and over and over again, he's Arkansas. Blue collar work ethic guy that if he wants it and he wants to get on the field, he's going to earn his spot, and he's earned it. He's worked hard for it. And I'm really proud to see a guy, a true freshman, come in and make such an impact. And I know he's full hog too. And that's the great thing to see.
And then you had Chris Paul, another stellar performance. Again, 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 16 yards for loss. I mean, they had 7 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. So, I mean, just they were in the backfield just as much. And that's where you could tell, like, last week when we were looking at the stats and we're like, how does this add up to a loss? Now we're looking at the very same stats. You can be like, okay, I can see where this was a loss for Arkansas because you got to look at Perkins. He was the game changer. He was the one that, you talking about clutch. It doesn't matter. And I know, like I said, we'll go to a break here real quick, but when it comes to, the spot call and all that, it's like quality over quantity. That guy was at the perfect place at the perfect time when it come to getting stops. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, let our sponsors say a few words, and then when we come back, we're going to continue on this conversation. And then we'll break down a little basketball, and then we're going to talk about Ole Miss coming up after a hard-fought loss to Alabama and where their mindset might be coming in. But we will catch you after the break. Hang tight. Do you need those pesky stumps ground before the winter? Your pasture brush hogged or need your driveway bladed? Here at Grind It Right Outdoor Services, we offer more than just stump grinding. We have recently expanded our business to include tractor work as well. So along with stump grinding, we offer bush hogging, land clearing, grading driveways, placing, and even spreading gravel. We are locally owned and operated, so call Danny today for a free quote at 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641. Again, that is 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641.
Shelby Taylor Trucking serves all your timberland needs in South Central Arkansas. With over 50 years in the industry, Shelby Taylor Trucking has established themselves as trustworthy leaders in the industry. From planting to harvesting to hauling your timber, Shelby Taylor Trucking is ready to serve you. Follow them on all social media platforms at Shelby Taylor Trucking. Learn more by visiting their website at staylortrucking.com. That's staylortrucking.com.
Camelot Exteriors specializes in identifying hail, wind, and other storm damage, as well as residential and commercial roof installations and re-roofing. We use only the highest quality materials from certified suppliers while putting a lifetime labor warranty on all of our roofs. Our mission is to provide our customers with the highest quality roofing project customized to fit each one of their needs and to provide exceptional service through the entire process. Camelot Exteriors is based in Norman, Oklahoma, but we proudly currently serve 9 other states as a premier nationwide roofing company. So call us today at 833-799-7663 for your free estimate. Camelot Exteriors, your storm damage restoration experts.
McCoy Tiger Drug Store of Sheridan, Arkansas has been the top pharmacy in all of South Central Arkansas since 1895. They were also the 2020 Good Neighbor Pharmacy of the Year. They not only fix you up with your prescription with timely and friendly service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They're located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-922-5121.
And we want to welcome you back to another episode of the Hog Talk podcast and carrying on with our conversation. Things are quirky when we look at college football and stuff. And Devin brought up, UConn beating Liberty, but Vandy beat Kentucky. When we look at losses and wins and all that stuff, it's bound to happen. It's college football. Things happen for a reason. You look at South Carolina, and when I was on on the SEC kickoff show with Blake Ruffino and Joe, I compared Arkansas and South Carolina when they were at the season point. Two similar situations. You can't really hang your hat on an 11-point win against Vandy like South Carolina did, but they had momentum. They beat Kentucky. They're riding high, and then all of a sudden they just dropped the ball. And now we see where South Carolina's at. Arkansas is the same way. You got the win against BYU, your bye week, and then a win against Auburn. You're like, okay, momentum's going high. You think you're on the right trajectory, and now you're on this skid. So, it's just it seems like we're going through the same things, year after year, other than last year. But last year can't happen every year. We know. until he gets his depth, until he gets a full, 2 deep roster without injuries where you could come in and bring another guy in, you're going to have things like this happen.
Yeah. And I said it earlier, like you had guys like Grant Morgan and Hayden Henry and Traylon Burks, guys that were Arkansas. They were your leaders. They were your heart and soul of this team. And they were going to fight through injuries. They were not going to be taken off the field. They would leave it all on the field last year. And I'm not saying these guys don't. I'm just saying like they played through their recruiting rankings. They exceeded all expectations. Not just Traylon, but I'm talking about like Hayden Henry and Grant Morgan, guys that were former walk-ons that were just considered role players under Brett Bielema and Chad Morris, and then they become just household names at Arkansas. And that I think that's where Arkansas is hurting this year, is through the leadership and motivation. But hopefully, after seeing them, and I know this was a rivalry game yesterday, but seeing the guys just look motivated, enthused to be on the field, like I haven't seen much like slapping each other's butts, hip checks, chest bumps, like any kind of genuine excitement this season until yesterday. Like this team, it felt like things were coming together. I think if they would have won yesterday, I think it would have kind of right all the wrongs that had been going on. I wish they could have won last week. I mean, honestly, against Liberty. But, we're talking about now, and we're talking about where this team is going. And I feel a lot better about Arkansas getting at least a 6th win. I don't know. I don't want to see what a pissed off Lane Kiffin Ole Miss team will look like this coming week. I mean, I saw his press conference. He was ticked off. Like, I love Lane Kiffin. He was my choice if Arkansas was ever going to get a coach. And a lot of people know that about me. They know I'm a huge Lane Kiffin advocate. But, man, I hope we kick their butts on next Saturday. But I'm chasing rabbits again. But yeah, this is what the team was missing was guys like Grant Morgan and the enthusiasm and then the love for the game and all that. And I saw that yesterday, and that was real promising. Hopefully moving forward, we'll see some more of that.
I think these guys are seeing, they know the LSU games. I mean, it's coming down to it. I think some of these people are starting to realize, hey, we've only got a couple more games left.
Yeah.
And I know it's sad to say that we're waiting this late in the season to show some fight and some fire, but I mean, sometimes it's the way it plays out. Jonathan Parker brings up a good point. Without the super seniors, I don't think we have the same, and it's playing out. And we're forgetting the whole thing. You think you're getting your star safety back. You think you're getting your star player back, Catalan. And first game, I mean, right out the gate, boom, collarbone. I mean, what kind of blow does that? Here we go again. We're talking about this snowball effect. What kind of, effect did that have on the team? But there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of things going on. And we've seen things that are carrying over to social media, and there's post-game press conference comments and players commenting on that and things that are cryptic. And it's like, you're on this skid. Why is your mind even on social media? Why is your mind even on? And I know they're kids and we can't tell them what to do, but it's almost like if we want to, if we want to hold the coaches as accountable as their play calling in these decisions, we need to start holding the players accountable. The ones that are not clearly seems like they're putting the team first. They're making decisions that are making it seem like they're putting themselves over the team, and their intentions might not be that way. But when you put yourself in certain situations and your teammates are having to pick up or fill your slot or pick up the pieces, the repercussions are now your team not only is trying to win a game, get back on track against a team like LSU. Now they're having to fill gaps that they can't afford to fill.
Yeah. And you're talking about the post-game press conference. And like everybody knows what happened. We have seen the screenshots of the tweet. Like, why even say anything like that? That is complete disrespect, not only for complete disrespect for your coach, who's keeping it professional. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors between those two guys, but your head coach is at least taking up for you. Don't put laughing emojis on your Twitter page, retweeting it. Come on, man.
And this is not the first time something like this has happened.
It's not.
When we're scrubbing and we're putting things out there, and it's exactly what I said the last time this happened. If you're doing this publicly, what are you doing privately? What are you doing behind closed doors? Because last week, he was taking first team snaps, and then all of a sudden, what if something happened? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. These behind closed doors things that we don't see, but the coaches take the fall for it because they're the ones that are, taking the brunt of it. And I mean, I want to know how we're weak by
exactly,
because when you're doing these things, and we've said this before, these guys want to start getting NIL money, and they want to start getting treated like paid players. We're going to start holding them accountable for their actions. And we can say weak, but if you're going to social media and your head's not, you're getting beat by LSU, you're getting beat by Liberty, but let's go comment on this. That shows right there that your head's not in the game. And we can be weak all we want, but it's just the fact that if you're trying to be better, if you're trying to not get people to say anything or comment or think that these things are going on, then prove us wrong by not doing those actions.
Yeah. Like, man, your coach is trying to take up for you, dude. Like, why? I don't understand. Like, it just shows a lack of maturity. It'd be like me. Like, my boss follows me on Twitter. I follow him back. Like, okay, what if he comments on something that I did there in the day and try and take up for me? I mean, I stand right beside him all day. I'm just going to tweet at him. I'm just going to be like, it's disrespectful. Like, just don't do it. Like, think before you tweet. Now, I like the whole Clemson thing, like not using the social media during the season. Isn't that right? Isn't that what your team does? Is not even use social media at all. I mean, keeping your mind clear. I mean, that it's a culture thing. I mean, that's how kids are. Like, I mean, we're gonna take to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and say whatever the heck we want.
But I'm not opposed to
free.
But I'm not opposed to taking things away. I'm not opposed. Yeah. I don't think. Here's the deal. It's like, be responsible. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't have it taken away. If you're responsible with it, we have the right, freedom of speech. Go say what you want to say, but we got to realize.
We don't see any other players doing this either.
Well, and we're not in their social media though either. I mean,
I know.
That's the thing. I'm sure it happens other places. I mean, we've seen. You can't tell me that with the transfer portal and people being unhappy. I mean, it happens all over the place, and I've seen some snippets here and there. But what I'm getting at is, it shouldn't have to be taken away. It should be one of them things that you represent your team and your program because you wear that jersey. It's just one of them things that there's certain things that I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do for the job I have. But I represent that company, and that's the thing. No matter what I'm doing, if I'm out at work, I represent that company. There's certain things that you can say and can't say. You know what? I have the right to say whatever I want, but I got to hold myself accountable if I say the things that are going to get me in trouble. That's where we are. Yeah. There's no accountability.
Yep. Those receipts. So, there's a team that's 2-0 right now that we haven't given respect to in the first 45 minutes.
Well, and that's that's where we're at. Look, and that's the thing. This is no disrespect to Musselman and what's going on with that basketball team and stuff, but we know we're dead in the middle of football season. So, it's one of them deals that, they played and we said coming into this season that North Dakota State was going to be a good team. And
Weren't
for them to get things going without your star player, I mean, they did really well.
Yeah, they and against Fordham, man, that 3-point defense, and we talked about that before the season, is like, how is their length going to affect the way that teams shoot from beyond the arc? And I think I'm trying to pull it up right now. Fordham, they shot 4 of 17 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
North Dakota State, they shot 5 of 21 from 3. And I think that is below like 25%. So that goes back to the like first year under Eric Musselman, where they wanted to make sure like teams didn't beat them from 3 and played complete defensive games. And Arkansas was doing that. Like, I mean, they were allowing like, I think 21 or 22% and ended up leading the whole NCAA in 3-point percentage that season. So I kind of see a return to that. And with the length, I expect it to kind of stay that way, at least until SEC play.
Well, and that's where you're seeing the youth. These kids are young.
Yeah.
These guys are, we're seeing the youth of this team come out. You're holding the team. And this is another thing. When you were talking about teams that play good defense, look at their free throw percentage. You held them to 58.8% from the free throw line, 10 of 17. I know that doesn't, but that just shows you when, and we look at the women's side of it, and they're having some struggle shooting free throws right now. They totally changed the pace of their game this year. And if you're running up and down, it's almost like we done a drill in high school where you would run up and down, you had to make 2 shots in a row and then shoot 2 free throws. You do that for 5 minutes. I mean, when you step the free throw line and you're just gassed. So let's think about Division I athletes. They're guarding each other for 40 feet, and then let's go shoot free throws after a 4-minute break. I mean, so when you're holding them to 58% from, and then like you said with the 3-point percentage, you held them to 23.5% as a whole, 4 for 17 for the game, but you held them to 37% from the floor alone, 17 to 45. So, and again, I know this is Fordham, but still yet. We've seen teams come in and play Arkansas tough, Oh,
yeah.
So,
especially last year.
Yeah. And then you cause 30 turnovers, like Devin said. I mean,
that's unheard of. That's defense.
But that's what you want.
You're confusing these guys. Like, Arkansas's length is affecting the passing lanes. Like, how many times did we watch Fordham try to kick it across the court to the guy at the corner? And Arkansas's length trying to get up in the passing lanes was affecting the ball. I mean, and overthrows, underthrows, side throws. Like, it was just incredible watching a very good engineered defensive performance. And Fordham didn't even reach 50 points.
Yeah. So I want to bring up, and this is who I'm going to give my shout out to on the basketball teams, Ricky Council. He reminds me of Justin Smith. You talk about what he meant to the team and what he's doing so far, coming in and making an immediate impact. That is who you look at. He's 6'6", 205. Justin, I think, was 6'7", 230, something like that. But that's just who he reminds me of, watching him in the highlights and how he's just kind of taken a role of you've seen that dunk. We've seen that. Everybody's seen the dunk he had. It's just one of the things that when you're coming in and you make that, like I said, that immediate impact. I mean, he's averaging 36 minutes a game, and he's averaging 18.5 points a game. Brazil's averaging 14, and Devo's averaging 12 as of November 11th. And I'll tell you what, that's surprising about Devo. You talk about a quiet 12.5 points a game. I mean, that's but I know this is a 2-game sample, but still yet, you're hearing, and then Mekhi Mitchell, he's coming in, Jordan Walsh, Anthony Black. But my biggest surprise and I want to give him props, as Joseph Pinion. He's coming in. You kind of thought he was going to be, one of those guys that didn't get much playing time, but now he's doing something in practice and he's killing it. And one of those guys we talk about, McAdoo, there was freshmen that are coming in and really making the most of their opportunity. He's coming in and he's proven that he earns a spot on the floor.
I mean, you can shoot all day long, but if you can't play defense, you're not going to play for Musselman. You're not going to sniff the court. And Pinion's showing that as a true freshman. What with his defensive ability, he's been able to at least carve out a role. I think he's averaging about a minute a game, but he's still playing well in the time that he's getting. You said Ricky Council kind of is like a Justin Smith. I say he's more of an athletic Mason Jones, a guy that's, he loves getting to the basket. And if him and Brazil can get those shots to go at the rim, and I know they're going to come. I think they've gone a little bit too strong in a couple of attempts. But if those guys can get those shots in there, man, Arkansas is going to be tough to stop at the basket. I think they're at the basket this season. Let me see. At least against Fordham, there's usually a stat in here that tells you where they shoot to the basket. There was 54 paint points. 54. And I know Fordham doesn't have the physical attributes that most SEC teams do, but 54 points in the paint, no matter what team you're playing, is pretty stout. But I really want to brag on Jalen Graham. I really didn't know what we were going to see out of him. He was coming off an injury, didn't really do much the past couple of weeks, but came in against Fordham, 10 points, looked really good in the second half. I think he's going to carve out a role. And Mekhi Mitchell, that guy, Arkansas hasn't had a back-to-the-basket scorer under Musselman. That guy is physical, and he's a man. I really enjoyed watching him. And that's what Arkansas needed, is more guys that are going to be physical down low, and that's what they have with Mitchell, Graham, and Brazil.
Yeah, and up next for Arkansas, you got South Dakota State, and they come off a 68-66 win over Boise State. Matt Dentlinger had 19 points and 2 rebounds. Then you had Zeke Mayo. He had 13 points. Alex Arians and William Kyle III each had 11. So they're 1-1 on the year. They got beat by Akron and then beat Boise State. So again, South Dakota State's another one of those teams that every now and then they'll sneak into the field of 64 or 68 now and pull off an upset. So I think this is going to be one of those games that is going to be you could see not as a trap game, but it'd be easy to overlook this game because after that you got the Maui Invitational and you got Louisville, Creighton, and Texas Tech. So look for this to be a very good tune-up game. Then you want to talk about what makes a team, and you always look at what we call trap games. You got a game against South Dakota State right before this Maui Invitational. It'd be so easy to have your mind set on, all right, we're about to go to Maui, we're about to go to Hawaii, we're about to just go, chill. Well, you've got South Dakota State coming. I know Louisville's had some struggles early on, but I'm telling you what, when you look at some of these teams that get beat by these Division IIs and these Evansvilles, and I can't remember who Louisville's gotten beat by, but you overlook a team like that, and then all of a sudden they get one guy that gets hot and goes off for 30. I mean, now you're looking at the one that you're getting beat by a team that just got beat by Evansville or whoever, So you can't take any of these teams lightly.
No, and that's the thing about basketball is a team can get hot any single night. Like you remember last year, Arkansas was playing Northern Illinois. Yeah, Northern Illinois is a pretty good basketball school, but they hit like 17 threes. Arkansas had to fight their way out of that inside Bud Walton Arena last year. But, man, that's the thing. This is a different thing about Arkansas this year is, like I said earlier, I think their length and physicality on defense is going to make more of an impact than we really realize. I think it's going to be the difference in a lot of games, especially in non-conference. Louisville's actually down this year. I mean, I think they lost both of their Division
Yeah.
II, or maybe they were 1-1 in their
got beat by
division.
Wright State, and then that
Division II exhibition games.
Bellarmine school, or who? Yeah, by one. They've lost both their games by 1 point. And Devin even said Wright
crazy
State
to me.
in the comments. But you mean that's just the way. I mean, you look at the drop of Arkansas 20 years ago after they were 94, 95, 95, 96, and then who would have thought that they were playing these EA Sports teams back then and getting beat. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But it's listen, it doesn't matter. Louisville could be undefeated, and Texas Tech, Creighton. My opinion, Texas Tech's going to be your biggest competition going into this, but you're going to be in Maui. I mean, but you're going to be on TV. It's going to be one of these games. But the coolest thing about basketball, and we've said this many times, you could go 0-2, 1-2, or 0-3 and 1-2 in this Maui Invitational. Means nothing. Means nothing. Conference is really, when you look at how basketball is laid out, your conference season carries everything. They always go off your last 10 games, what you did in conference, and your non-conference resume. I mean, I'm glad they're playing this Maui Invitational because, I mean, their non-conference schedule, other than that, I mean, you got Troy, San Jose State, Greensboro, of course, Oklahoma. Then you got Bradley, and then UNC Asheville. So this Maui Invitational is going to be the anchor to their non-conference. I mean, other than OU, I mean, I guess
we thought OU was going to be improved.
Yeah.
And Porter Moser, that guy was, I mean, I don't know what's going on. I mean, he was a heck of a coach at Little Rock and Loyola Chicago, but something's happened since he's been at Oklahoma, and things just haven't been going his way. I mean, they lost to freaking Sam Houston State on opening night last week. So that was weird. So, I mean, really, honestly, you're hoping you have a good Maui Invitational appearance, like you said, because you're not going to have any key wins after during non-conference play.
Well,
have to depend on a lot on your,
and that's in between. He brings up the Baylor game. That's in between, conference games. So, I mean, that's kind of, I understand your point on the non-conference, but when I mean non-conference, I'm talking about the games before you get into conference play. Because, I mean, but I think this is going to be, and what crazier way to start off your SEC slate at LSU. Want to talk about a way to really get this team. I mean, you've got LSU, Missouri, and then at Auburn.
And Auburn's going to be wanting retribution for what happened last year.
At Auburn, you got to start first year 3 games at LSU. You get Missouri at home, and then at Auburn. I'm telling you,
schedule.
That's gonna be a brutal start. Don't sleep on Missouri either. I mean, you talk about sandwiched in between LSU and Auburn. So, I mean, that's gonna be one of them deals that you can't overlook that. And hopefully, we don't even know what the status of Nick Smith is. We don't know. Hopefully, he'll be back by conference. I haven't heard a thing about. And I know Ty Richardson on the Morning Rush at ESPN Arkansas was saying that worries him. It does. I mean, I got to give him props for, that's where I was hearing it from. But when they don't disclose anything about a status, that really gets you thinking, how bad is this? And I don't want to speculate or anything like that. But, I mean, he put out a tweet. I think he said –
I was about to bring that up.
Go ahead. I didn't. You did.
Yeah. It was they gonna film me or gonna film me. GONE.
Yep.
Fill me.
Yeah. So hopefully that means his return's coming back soon. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. What's cool about this is while we're deep diving into football, they're playing their non-conference schedule. And then when, football wraps up, it's going to be time for, you start. So let's say bowl season, depending on the bowl, it's going to be right there close to the LSU game, depending on what bowl game they get. So it's going to be buttoned up next to each other. But we know that once they get into SEC play, we're going to start really ramping up the basketball coverage, of course. We're going to have the women's stuff on the different days. So, having 2 games a week, we're going to have plenty to talk about when it comes to this basketball team.
Oh, yeah. Basketball is my favorite sport. I talk a lot about football, but, man, basketball is my first love. And being able to see And I know we got a couple more minutes. I can just sit here and talk about it. But I didn't really start becoming a huge basketball fan, especially Arkansas, until about 06. And Ronnie Brewer was my idol. Like, I used to try to shoot like him. You know, he used to have like a little bow from when he had like some kind of arm, broke his arm riding a bike or something back when he was a kid. And so his shot was just a little bit different. And I tried to imitate old Ronnie the best I could. But yeah, like basketball, man, I love talking about it. I wish we could talk about it all year round just because that's how much I love it. And man, I'm really excited about this team to see where they can go, especially with how they don't even have their best player on the court right now is what's impressive to me. And being able to put up that offense. I can't wait to see what they have with Nick Smith offensively and defensively when he comes back.
Yeah, you talking about having him and Black right there at the top. I mean, it's when you have those guys, and we're talking about holding people to these free throws and 3-point percentages. It's easy to look at your length, and I know closeout speed and getting in, depth where you're not even allowing the guys to get a high percentage shot, but when you're having to guard the length on defense and you're going into that transition offense, I mean, just how tired you're going to be. I mean, that right there in itself does just as much of what you do on offense as it does on the closeout speed.
Yeah. And if you've forgotten Nick Smith, and while we were talking about length, he's 6'5", but has like a 7-foot wingspan. That's just freaking crazy to me.
I mean, he's all
man.
And that's
goodness.
One thing that makes, everybody's had so much hype for this team. And from what we've seen so far, I mean, you're not, and that's the thing, like you're not going to be able to expect all these guys to come in and, score 20 points a game. We're going to have those role player guys. So it's good to see that we see who the guys are standing out, but it's not like say Walsh only gets 6-7 points. I mean, if they're doing their job on defense, they're filling their role. That's what Coach Musselman's all about. And he gets this thing rolling around January. So we're looking at, the Missouri Auburn's January 7th. That's when he usually gets things cracking about, 3-4 games into the SEC season. So we'll see what's turning out with this team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do, how the Auburn atmosphere is going to be. I think that's going to be the test. I mean, about LSU, really don't know where they're at right now with their new staff and the new team. It was a completely overhauled roster. But I think Auburn's going to answer a lot of questions when you get down there. Hopefully Auburn comes away unscathed and they can meet as undefeated teams early on in conference play.
Yeah, because, I mean, it can be one of those Texas situations, your first true road test. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, I mean, your first game at Auburn, say you get run by 20. I mean, it's not going to be the end of it. I mean, that's just your first game, but it's going to give you a shot of, hey, this is what you got to look forward to because you've got to go to Auburn, then Missouri, you get LSU at home, then your game against Baylor. Then you got Kentucky February 7th, at Texas A&M on the February 15th, which is always a tough game for the Razorbacks on the road. Florida, Georgia, at Alabama. Then you get at February 28th, at Tennessee, March 4th. You get Kentucky at home. So I'm talking about this schedule sets up that if they get through this and they get a top 2, top 3 overall, like when it comes to the SEC, you talking about battle tested, how this schedule is even out through the whole deal. There's not like a big stretch of 4 games in a row where it's going to be tough. You've got a couple of games sprinkled in, but nevertheless, it's going to be a tough SEC schedule.
Yeah, I really like closing with Kentucky at home. Kind of you put the stamp on the season, regular season, by hopefully beating Kentucky. And I know Kentucky is going to be good too because, man, they are the only team in the SEC to me that matches up with Arkansas size for size. But Alabama and Auburn, man, Alabama looks good.
Yeah. And what else is done down there? That's another coach that's really done a lot with his team. I mean, that's, the SEC has really started to come back up when it gets the most, a lot more teams are competitive in the league, with the way Texas A&M's been for Arkansas, and then of course Kentucky and Alabama and Auburn. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We do have a big week this week when it comes to, of course, Ole Miss. We're going to have our Ole Miss show on Thursday. Wednesday, we're going to have an hour-long show on our weekly women's sports report. We're going to have the head coach of UAPB on to talk about the magnitude of the UAPB Arkansas game. And I do want to talk just a quick second about it. And when you go into a season where Arkansas is playing at UAPB, you think it's just another game against an in-state school. I was very well educated, moved on what this game meant to both sides, what this game meant to Arkansas, what this game meant for the banner-carrying college of this state to go to Pine Bluff and play the women in UAPB. And so we're going to have the head coach of the UAPB on Thursday or Wednesday at 6, Coach Don Thornton. So I'm very excited about that. Plus, we had a lot of recruiting news with the softball, basketball, all the signings going on. So that's going to be an hour-long show on Wednesday. And then, of course, our 30-minute Thursday show previewing the Ole Miss game. Don't have a guest linked up just yet, but we're going to have some kind of beat writer or someone that covers the Ole Miss Rebels to talk about that. But before we go, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor of the Arkansas Brewing Company. Went down there last week, man. If you don't have a place to go watch the game in the River Valley, go to Ozark, 201 South 1st Street in Ozark, Arkansas. They got daily specials, drinks. Of course, being from Ozark, the Hillbilly Lager is my favorite drink to go to. Karaoke. So if you want a good place to go hang out, great food and great drinks, be sure to visit my hometown of Ozark and go visit the Arkansas Brewing Company. But Jacob, you got anything else before we wrap it up, brother?
I'll go Hogs.
All right. Well, that will do it again for another episode of the Hog Talk podcast presented by Arkansas Brewing Company and Bet Online. And we will catch you on Wednesday. I'm telling you, this cursor got me again, brother.
Oh,
Gold screens.
TV.